Hello and welcome to this SITSI Group webinar where we'll be discussing the story of IoT in Europe and taking you through some of our use case examples. I'm Sarah Wilson and I'll be moderating today's webinar. I'm joined by Principal Analyst Joachim Hackman, who will be your host for today. If you have any questions during the webinar, please use the chat function and we'll spend some time at the end of the webinar answering as many of your questions as possible. So without further ado, I'll pass you to Joachim to start the webinar.
Okay, thank you, Sarah, for the introduction, and I would like to welcome you as well. And as Sarah already mentioned, I'm your host, I'm your presenter for today's webinar and for the next 45 to 50 minutes. And as Sarah already mentioned, I'm the principal consultant at PAC, focusing on topics like digital and IoT and several verticals like financial, insurance, and manufacturing. I would like to start immediately with the presentation, as we have a lot of things to discuss today and only a limited time frame. And I would like to start with the agenda of today's webinar. First of all, I would like to talk a little bit about the segmentation, how PAC makes a definition of IoT. That might sound a little bit boring for some of you, but nevertheless, I think it's very important to get a common understanding on what are we talking about, and I promise that I will not spend too much time on this topic. No, however, I think it's very important to get a clear definition of IoT and how PAC has defined it. The second point, or the second part of the presentation, will be about the figures, IoT figures from our SITSI database. This is the main part of my presentation, and I will show you some figures about several regions, several countries, several verticals. And however, it is very important to note that I can present you today only a small selection of the figures that are available through your SITSI subscription. So feel free to dive deeper into the SITSI database after our webinar. Next point will be the IoT business, the impact of IoT on the business of software and service providers, followed by part about the user companies. What are they talking about in terms of IoT? What are the use cases in user companies, the maturity of IoT projects, and so on. And we talk a little bit about the budgets that are available on the IoT in the IoT space, and so on. And finally, we have reserved 10 to 50 minutes for a Q&A session. So let's start with the segmentation, IoT segmentation. In PAC's view, everything starts with the digital business innovation at the very top of this slide. This is at the this follows a question of user companies and how can we leverage new digital technologies in order to create, operate, and operate innovative and digital services, products, processes, as well as completely new business models. To answer these questions, PAC differentiates three main aspects of digitalization. On the very left side of this slide, you see the box with the digital customer experience. This is mainly about the external view or the external interface to the client, to the customer of user organizations. And this describes how user companies or how organizations can make usage of new technologies in order to reshape and optimize their interaction with customers, with their clients. This affects mainly business units like, for example, sales, marketing, customer services as well as commercial activities. On the right-hand side, you see the digital workspace, and that's more about the internal view, about the internal processes that can be improved with the means of digital technologies. This is all about bringing a highly collaborative and agile workspace into the company, and in order to improve employee experience while ensuring highly security and efficiency standards. What we are talking about today is shown in the box in the middle of this slide, the Internet of Things. This is mainly about new processes, new products, new business models that are centered around physical goods. IoT is mainly affected, or does mainly affect companies that are dealing with physical goods, and they can add, for example, local intelligence to transform the products to smart productions, and to completely cyber physical system. Okay, that's the main part, even in revenue figures. And let's go to the next slide. The digital business and innovation can also be divided into 10 so-called contexts. These contexts seems to be quite similar to classical verticals, but in fact they aren't completely congruent. And I will show you this by the example of the connected car on the following slides. First of all, I'd like to stay a little while on this slide to demonstrate you that different contexts are affected to a different degree by IoT. And if you look at the digital factory at the left-hand side of this sheet, you see that, or you should bear in mind that manufacturers are heavily impacted by IoT, as they are dealing with physical goods, and they can transform them to smart products and smart production and so on. If you look at the digital finance companies, for example, banks and insurance, they are mainly dealing with, let's say, virtual values like insurance policies, like money, like shares, and so on. And in this case, it makes not so much sense to add IoT capabilities to their business models. They are more affected with the digital experience changes, or the digital workspace changes, in order to improve their processes in approaching external customers, or in terms of improve the efficiency of the internal processes. So the main message on this slide is that the 10 contexts are affected by IoT to a different degree. When we go to the next slide, this shows the example, the connected car is a good example to explain the overlaps between the several contexts. When you, for example, look at the services that are integrated in a connected car, all these services need, for example, connectivity, mostly from, or usually from mobile networks, as a fixed line won't work in the cars. And most of these services make use of data analytics and data processing, and some of these services generate data themselves. Of course, not every connected car or not every connected vehicle integrates all of these services, but most likely there are many other services that are integrated in connected cars. So what I try to mention, or to show you, is that the services are create the essence of connected car. They are the value of a connected car. They are the base of the business model of the connected car. And all of these services make use of different IoT enabling technology, like AI, like cloud computing, like connectivity, and so on. And of course, the list of the technologies shown in this slide is only a small selection. There are further technologies that might appear in the future. For example, take blockchain, that might be a good preferred technology for the future when it comes to payment processes, for example, for battery charging or for fee-based services. And when we look at the provider or the manufacturing landscape, there are a broad variety of providers and manufacturers that are involved in the creation, in the development, or in the operation of the connected vehicle. And when you, for example, look at the insurance companies or an insurance company that provides usage-based insurance to a driver, the revenue of the insurance company can be allocated in smart finance, but it is allocated in connected car as well. If you take the example of a shipping company that make usage of a connected vehicle to provide, for example, a connected service change, the revenues shipping companies generates can be allocated in smart transport and as well as in connected vehicles. So the point is that we have overlaps in all of these contexts, and it cannot withdraw all overlaps from, for example, in this case, from a connected car, because it won't make sense, and you won't get a holistic view on the specific context. So there are overlaps, and overlaps are unavoidable in all of these contexts. On this slide, you see more specific or a more detailed definition of the 10 contexts. It's only for your information. For those of you who are interested in a more detailed description, this link that is provided at the top of this sheet will lead you to a PDF with a detailed description of our segmentation. But it's only for your information. I don't want to talk about this one. Okay, let's go ahead straightforward to the SITSI figures, to the IoT market. What is the impact of IoT of the total IT expenditures, or on the IT market? If we compare the total IT expenditures as shown in the dark blue bars on this side, and compare it with the IoT expenditures, you see that IoT revenue or IT spendings is only 1/8 of the size of total IT expenditures. And at this point, it's very important to note that we are only talking about IT expenditures. That includes, for example, that includes software, that includes services, IT services, hardware, staff costs, as well as miscellaneous like energy, rental costs for data centers, all these lines. The same applies to the IoT figures. They only include software, services, IT hardware, staff costs, and other costs like energy. They do not include IoT, non-IT related spendings. Take the example of the connected car. The car itself won't count into the revenues, in the IoT revenues. Take the example of health, in the digital health. For example, smart watches are not part of our IT figures, and so we have to bear this in mind, that we only are talking about IT expenditures in the IoT market. But why are the whole world is talking about IoT? What is special about the IoT? And the answer to this question is shown on this side. On this slide, it's simply the growth rates. The the IoT expenditures is growing more than 6 times as fast as the IT expenditures, and this makes the IoT business so attractive. What's important to note in this figures in this graph is that if you take the revenue of the IoT it is split in several IT spendings, like software, like services, like hardware and stuff, like, as mentioned before. And the vast majority of spendings comes from the service sector. This is because most of the projects on user companies are individual software developments, and that's why services and internal staff are the most demanded spendings. And for example, services, 37% of the total IoT expenditures go to service providers, and 34% to the staff. Only software makes only 12% of the total spendings in this IoT sheet. Okay. If we split the IoT figures by country, we see that Germany, France, and UK are the leading countries in Europe. On the top left side, you see the graph for Western Europe. One word to the Eastern Europe market. I haven't included Eastern Europe in this figures because it's only a small business compared with the Western Europe business. Eastern Europe is only 5% the size of the Western Europe markets. That's the reason why we are focusing in this webinar on Western Europe and on the leading companies, leading countries. Sorry. At the left-hand side, at the bottom of the left-hand side, you see the figures for Germany. Germany is by far the largest IoT market, thanks to its strong manufacturing and automotive sector. And on the right-hand side, you see France and UK. Both, and have a similar size. France is a little bit larger than UK, and has the weakest low growth rate of the top 3 countries, but still very impressive with 19.1% growth rates over the next 5 years. For those of you who are wondering about the UK, that UK is only number 3, ranked only number 3 in this ranking, as because UK usually is very innovative and very forerunner in adopting new technologies. Bear in mind that IoT does not cover the financial economy, and UK is the overall UK economy is dominated by banks and insurance, and they are not covered in this, or only to a small degree covered in the IoT figures. To give you an idea about the size of the other countries, Sweden is ranked number 4, and the size of Sweden IoT market is only 1/3 of the UK market. So it's very clear that these 3 countries leading the IoT business in Europe by far, and that's why we will focus on these 3 countries during the webinars. Nevertheless, we will take a short look on other countries. This graph shows the relation between IoT expenditures and total IT expenditures, and it shows different figures. And let's explain this figures by the example of Sweden. 18% of the total IT expenditures come from IoT. That makes Sweden the most progressive country in Europe in terms of IoT adoption. And because you can, this figures can be seen as some kind of a degree of a maturity. The higher the number, the more IoT spendings are made and the more innovations are implemented or planned in these countries. And again, bear in mind that for the countries UK, France, and Switzerland that have very strong financial industries in their countries, these relations cover only the IoT specific spendings. A breakdown by region and country unveils that digital factory is by far the largest context, followed by smart energy and connected vehicles and digital government. Government, honestly, to my surprise, I would have expected other contexts like smart transport or smart home ahead of digital government, but this might be influenced by my special German view, and because German government is not really as innovative as other countries. If you look at the left side, the bottom of the left side, you see the IoT figures of Germany, and Germany is clearly dominated by digital factory and connected car, connected vehicle. That comes with no surprise, and smart energy is relatively weak, as German utilities lag behind digital change, and smart meter rollout has just started at beginning of this year. So the German vertical utility, German utilities lag behind in terms of digital change. If you look at the France numbers and the UK numbers on the right-hand side, you see a more balanced breakdown. France has a very strong digital manufacturing context, followed by smart energy, thanks to its strong utility companies and connected vehicles. And if you look at UK, it's even more balanced. And what's most notable in terms of UK numbers is the high growth rates in retail. And this is because the UK retailers facing serious challenges through, of course, online competitors. And what's most notably is that UK retailers are willing to invest heavily in digital and IoT solution to increase their competitiveness and to improve their client relations. A regional breakdown of the four contexts shows that, of course, connected vehicle is dominated by Germany, with more than 1/3 of the IoT revenues in connected vehicles comes from Germany. But let us stay a little while with the UK situation. Even if UK is very low, it's most notably that the UK market is growing very fast. This is could be the reason behind this could be the efforts of the UK government that announced most recently, for example, announced an industrial strategy to reinforce the industrial production with the means of AI and digital technology, among others. And basically UK is a very innovative country and is very open to adopt new technology. So it's most likely that UK will succeed in, for example, in areas like connected vehicles and digital factory in the future. And UK government most recently, for example, announced that they will reduce the regulation around autonomous driving, and so we will see self-driving cars on British roads by 2021 latest. So the UK strives for more innovations in industrial and connected vehicles environments. A few words to the smart energy and resources sector. You see comparatively low growth rates. This comes because this industry is highly regulated, a highly regulated market. Nevertheless, the UK grows at a very high pace, competitively high pace, because UK utilities see a strong competition from foreign providers like ENGIE from France and Vattenfall from Sweden, and they, the providers are increasingly looking to leverage new digital technology in order to differentiate from these competitors. So they will invest heavily in IoT and other technologies. And for France and Germany, the utilities are driven, the changes in utility are mainly driven to energy transition laws and smart meter rollouts. And but it's not, the growth rates are not so high as in other contexts. So what is the impact on service providers in the IoT market? If we look at the competitive provider landscape of the past, this was mainly divided into three divided by strategy consultants, IT service providers, and to a specific degree to digital agencies as well. With the advance with the digital transformation, everyone strives to move in the center of this bubbles in order to support and service clients in their digital transformation efforts. What already happened for a while is that all of these providers have established digital business units that concentrate skills and resources, and these units bring together, for example, know-how in agile development, in design thinking, in cloud computing, and artificial intelligence, and so on. Furthermore, many providers have established showrooms at different locations in order to demonstrate the use cases and know-how for a broad variety of digital enabling technology, and much more important, to show the usage of new technology and how user companies can leverage this technology to create new services and new businesses. But what's more important is that a lot of new cross-industry partnerships models, and that a lot of typical client or user companies evolve as solution providers. They have their own solutions in place. And takes example from GE, General Electric. General Electric has announced to become a top 10 software provider in the future. Or take the example of Siemens. Siemens has an IoT platform called MindSphere, and put it into the center of their digital change efforts, and in the center of their offerings around IoT and industrial IoT. Another example is Bosch. Bosch has established its own software company, Bosch Software Innovation, in order to provide clients new solutions around IoT. When you look at this slide, you see a small selection of cross-industry partnerships, and I want to talk a little bit in detail about the one partnership at the very bottom, in the middle of the very bottom of this slide, the company a company called 365 FarmNet. It was established by Claas. Claas is a manufacturer of agricultural machineries, and the company has established has founded 365 FarmNet in order to provide farmers a digital platform with a lot of broad variety of services that are developed and operated by a broad ecosystem. Claas itself provides, for example, connected vehicles for farming, and Claas stepped back in the background. They wanted to keep themselves in the background. If you, for example, if you visit the 365 FarmNet, you won't detect that Claas is the main investor of this company. Claas want to encourage even competitors to jump on this platform, and this 365 FarmNet is a good example to show how IoT and digital technology change the position of a user companies like Claas that becomes a service provider, a solution providers for a specific vertical as well. The next example is Adamos at the left-hand side in the middle. Adamos was founded by several manufacturing companies like Dürr, like Zeiss. It's an optical manufacturing for optical technologies, and even in software AG as well. And this joint venture, this company Adamos wants to provide an industrial IoT platform to other manufacturers. And this shows that user companies increasingly try to sit down in the driver's seat in the digital change and become a solution providers for a whole industry. So for service and software providers, this development shows that it's not longer clear who is friend or foe in this IoT game, and so service providers and service companies should make up their mind where their areas of interest or focus are, and they should striving for ecosystems themselves, for IP-based assets, and for partnerships to evolve their business around IoT. Okay, what is the view of the user companies on the IoT market? When we look at innovation companies like Siemens and Novartis, Bosch or Claas, it's important to note that they are not typical for European companies. These companies, that I have mentioned before, are forerunners in the adoption of IoT technologies. The vast majority of user companies in Europe is far lagging behind. According to PAC's CXO survey, 40% of the companies are still in the stage of planning and of planning their IoT activities and their strategies. A further 33% are in a very early phase, which means that they are still running only IoT pilot projects. And all in all, this graph shows that we are still at the beginning of the IoT game, and it's not too late to jump on this train. And yeah, again, this is only the beginning of the IoT game. Nevertheless, the companies are willing to spend more money on IoT activities. In most companies, the IoT budgets will increase, and this information closes the circle to the very beginning of the webinar when we have learned that the IoT total expenditures will grow at a fast pace. This PSC prediction is proven by this chart, as 72% of the surveyed companies stated that they will increase their IoT budgets within the next 3 years. So the good news here is that the European companies will have more money to spend on IoT solutions. But on what kind of projects do they spend their money? Let's take a close look to the current project situation in European user companies. And for those of you who do not know the innovation register from PSC, I strongly recommend to visit the web page, the PSC homepage, or to follow the URL as shown on this site. In the PSC innovation register, we have collected more than 550 IoT projects worldwide, and we have checked all of them. We have described all of them, every single project, and we have rated every single project under 2 aspects. First of all, the relevance of the IoT project in the specific user company. Is it significant only for the company, or is it relevant for the couple of companies, for a specific industry or a region? Or is it possibly a good example of best practices with a global reach? That's the first evaluation. The second evaluation analyzes the maturity, and this is shown in this triangle. At the bottom of the triangle, you see the lowest maturity level. This is when IoT technology is used only to create data via sensors or via wearables. This is a very simple service, a very simple solution in the IoT space. The higher up you climb this triangle, the more value you get from the data. That's the idea behind the maturity level. And in the middle of the triangle, you see the analytics level. This is where incoming data or collected data are analyzed in order to report the results on a dashboard. And to a much higher degree, or to a little bit higher degree, these data are analyzed and trigger action or events. This is the first steps, for example, the first step towards automation. And at the very top of this triangle, we see the disruptive maturity level. For the moment, at the moment, we see only 3% of our collected projects have reached this disruptive level. This means that they have impact on business models in a specific industry. It's most likely, or we expect this, that the projects will evolve more to a higher level within the coming next 3 years. At the moment, the majority of projects still focus on capturing data, like it is shown on the bottom of this triangle. Let's go through some selected innovation cases from the innovation register. This is an example of Norway. Yara is a company that produces a crewless automated cargo ship. Yara is mentioned sometimes as the Tesla of the shipping industry, and this is a good example of a huge impact of a project on the transportation industry. The next example comes from Germany. This is an example from the city of Hamburg, and a joint project with Deutsche Telekom. The local government strives to reduce the traffic caused by the search for parking. In this solution, drivers will receive a real-time notification about available parking spaces, be it on public or private areas. And this is a good example, for example, for the overlaps of contexts. Part of this revenue generated by this use cases can be located, for example, in smart cities, in a smart city context, and another part can be allocated in connected vehicles. Next example is from France. It's a joint project of Atos Worldwide and Michelin Solutions. They both work together to implement a telematic platform for collecting and processing vehicle data. This solution affects the context connected vehicle and smart transport, and this is implemented in order to help carriers to optimize their fuel consumption and to improve the management of trailers. The next example comes from the UK. Scottish Power has hired, in this case, Vodafone to monitor its energy networks. This is an excellent example for the smart grid of the future, where companies can tell households when they can buy electricity at the cheapest price. So this makes very much usage, makes much sense for the utility companies, and could be implemented in other countries as well. Okay, let's summarize all this stuff up. And first of all, it is important to note that IoT affects every industry, but not every industry or context to the same degree. Verticals that are dealing with physical goods are most affected. And what we all see furthermore is that vertical boundaries will not vanish away, but they will become blurred, and that a lot of overlaps between several contexts are possible and cannot be avoided. From a service provider perspective, the IoT market is no longer a small market, even, but it's not a really big market, but it's a very, very fast growing market in general. Of course, this differs between region and verticals. As we have learned during this webinars, smart utilities does not grow at the same pace like a digital factory or a connected vehicle. But in general, the IoT business will grow 6 times faster than the total IT expenditures, and the IoT growth is mainly related to verticals that are dealing with physical goods. When we look at the service provider or the software provider side, we have learned that IoT needs new competencies and partnerships on the provider side. For example, business skills are most mandatory, and technical skills around cloud computing and AI are very important in order to serve client companies and in their efforts for digital changes. And what's more important is that a lot of client companies, user companies, are evolving towards solutions provider. They have established their own companies to sell products, to sell services, and to fulfill the digital change for specific verticals and regions. So on the bottom line, it's no longer clear for software and service companies, are user companies friends or foe. The service and software companies have to build up their own economies, ecosystems, and their own partnerships with specific companies. From user perspective, most user companies in Europe are still at a very early phase in their IoT projects. Most companies are still testing and planning, but nevertheless, the work on IoT integration has been started in many companies, and nearly every company is considering how they can leverage new technology in order to improve their products, improve their clients' services, and to establish new services and business models. Currently, the most undertakings are about capturing data, companies searching for ideas, for solutions to get more value from the data they have gathered so far, and a lot of companies need help, need advice how to deal with this data and how to find new ways to leverage the value of this data. So that's it from my side. I hope you have enjoyed this short story of IoT in Europe, and that you have learned a little bit about the SITSI figures, what you can find out with the SITSI figures, how, and I hope you can leverage all this information for your daily work. And yeah, hopefully this presentation was useful for you. And now I'd like to hand over to Sarah for the Q&A session.
Thank you, Joachim. So we now have some time to answer your questions. The first question that we have is going back to some of your earlier slides. It's if, for example, Germany is 15% of the total IT budget spending for IoT, is that across all industries? How much is the percentage of IoT spending for automotive and manufacturing in Germany?
So 15% is over all industries, yes. This relates to every, it's a total IoT spendings in relation to total IT spendings. And what was the second part of the question?
Sorry, it was how much percentage is the IoT spending for automotive and manufacturing in Germany?
I'm not sure if I understand the question correctly. The 15% I've shown in this, I go back to the slide. Oh, sorry for this. %15 means that of all IT expenditures in Germany, IoT expenditures make are 15% of the IT expenditure in Germany comes from IoT spendings in general across all verticals. And I cannot figure out how much of this 15% comes from manufacturing and automotive, but if you step back to the to this slide, you see that in Germany, the vast majority comes from digital factory. 8.1 billion euros come from digital factory, and connected car, 3.4 billion euros come from connected vehicles. And when you sum up all, if you add all of these numbers, digital factory, connected vehicles, smart energy, digital government, and all other 10 contexts, if you add all this revenue up and compare it with the total IT spending, then you come to the figure of 15%. Does this answer your question?
Yes, thank you, Joachim. So the next question I have for you is, so I have a question regarding the regional breakdown of context. Do the contexts have specific regional characteristics?
Yes. It depends. Let me go to the breakdown of context, regional context. This one, yes. For example, connected vehicles or digital factory are mainly global, are mainly globally. And even if the products may have a regional character that is produced in a digital factory, the underlying technologies and the underlying processes are pretty much the same, whether it is produced in UK, in Germany, or in France. Of course, the different, there are some difference depending on the kind of the production. Is it mass or discrete production? Is it a process or industry, and so on? But in general, the context in terms of digital factory and connected vehicle are pretty much the same in overall in every country. When you take examples of smart energy or finance or digital government, it's these contexts are highly regulated, and you see a lot of regional specific services and products. And even if you have EU-wide level regulations, the maturity, for example, in smart energy differs extremely. When you perhaps look at countries like Sweden, like Italy, like France or UK, they have reached a wide scale in smart meter rollout. Other countries like Germany and Slovakia, as far as I know, are lagging behind. And for example, same applies to the financial industry. Although regulations are established mainly on a European level, when you look in countries like UK, in France, Germany, and Austria, the provider landscape, the client behavior in terms of mobile payment, in terms of cashless payments, and so differ to a high degree. So this has to be taken account when starting projects and support services for user companies. So all in all, the contexts differ from country to country. Some contexts are different from country to country, but some are on even the same on the on a worldwide level.
Okay, thank you for that, Joachim. So we have time for one more question. You mentioned companies are at an early stage of IoT. Do you have any idea on how long usual IoT projects are? Is there any difference per vertical?
Basically, I do not have any information about the extent of IoT projects in different contexts. What we see is that most of the projects are driven by individual software development, and a lot of projects are still in the pilot phase. A lot of companies are testing new technologies and so on. And even though they are in a very early stage, some of the companies have already finished IoT projects, but the vast majority is at the very beginning. And the vast majority of projects are very short because they are developed within an agile development cycle and so on. So companies are currently at the stage where they try new products, new technologies, and then make a review and try to decide whether they stop this project or go ahead. So in general, IT projects are much smaller, much faster, much more agile than traditional IT projects. That can be mentioned in general, but I do not have really information about how long a typical IoT project will last in different contexts.
Okay, thank you for your presentation and answers to the Q&A, Joachim. And thank you to everyone that has joined us today. That's all we have time for, but in the next 24 hours, we'll make sure we send you an email with a link to the slides and a recording. Thank you.